Hello, true crime fans. Welcome to Behind the Yellow Tape. Today's story is one of the most harrowing examples of human exploitation in modern American history. It is the chilling narrative of Linda Weston, the ringleader of a racketeering enterprise that targeted, kidnapped, enslaved, tortured, and murdered some of society's most vulnerable members for a decade. This is the case of the Basement of Horrors. Around the year 2001, Weston, along with a core group of co-conspirators, including her own daughter, Jean McIntosh, began to formalise her criminal activities into a lucrative enterprise. Their victims were specific: mentally disabled individuals, often those estranged from their families, making them easy targets. They sought people who were desperately looking for a place to belong. The lure was a promise of a safe home, a community, or in some cases, a feigned romantic interest. But the true motivation was purely financial: social security disability checks. Once a victim was in her control, Weston would use deceit and coercion to have herself appointed as their representative payee. This is a legal status under the Social Security Administration, intended to ensure that a person's benefits are used in their best interest. In Weston's hands, it became a tool for theft. Over 10 years, she legally diverted over $212,000 from her victims. To secure this continuous income stream, the victims were effectively erased from the public eye. Weston would move her entire operation and her captives across state lines, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to Texas, Norfolk, Virginia, and West Palm Beach, Florida. This mobility was a calculated strategy to avoid detection by both law enforcement and social service agencies. For the victims, escape was rendered nearly impossible. What the victims endured transcends simple abuse. It was systematic enslavement. The conditions of their captivity varied by location, but the cruelty was constant. They were confined to tiny dark spaces, locked closets, hot unfinished attics with exposed insulation, and cold, damp basements. They were subjected to extreme malnutrition and denied basic medical care. To prevent any thought of rebellion or escape, they were frequently drugged. Sedatives mixed into their meagre food and drink. They were forced to live in their own filth, using buckets for a toilet. What the victims endured transcends simple abuse. It was systematic enslavement. The conditions of their captivity varied by location, but the cruelty was constant. They were confined to tiny dark spaces, locked closets, hot unfinished attics with exposed insulation, and cold, damp basements. They were subjected to extreme malnutrition and denied basic medical care. To prevent any thought of rebellion or escape, they were frequently drugged. Sedatives mixed into their meagre food and drink. They were forced to live in their own filth, using buckets for a toilet. The violence was brutal and relentless. When captives tried to find food, protest, or escape, they were severely punished. Federal prosecutors detailed beatings with hands, belts, sticks, bats, hammers, and even the butt of a pistol. Victims were stabbed and burned. Tamara Breeden, one of the survivors, testified that she was forced to drink her own urine and was held captive for more than a decade. This enterprise was not just about profit, it resulted in murder. 2 women in Weston's care died due to the depraved conditions. Donna Spedia was found dead in 2005 in Philadelphia after being kept in a basement and fed drug-laced food. Weston reportedly staged the scene to look like an overdose before moving the body. Then there was Maxine Lee, who died in 2008 in Virginia of bacterial meningitis and starvation after being confined to a kitchen cabinet and an attic for months. The entire operation was brought crashing down on the 15th of October 2011 in the Tacony neighbourhood of Philadelphia. A landlord investigating a complaint of suspicious activity forced open a steel door in a sub-basement. He found 4 gaunt, bedraggled adults, including one man shackled to a boiler. This shocking scene immediately brought police to the property and triggered a massive multi-state investigation. Complexity of the case demanded a federal response. In January 2013, a federal grand jury unsealed a colossal 196-count indictment against Linda Weston and her four co-conspirators. The federal prosecution was highly significant for two reasons. One, racketeering and murder. The enterprise was successfully prosecuted under the Racketeering, Influence and Corrupt Organisations Act, normally reserved for organised crime. The charges included 2 counts of murder in aid of racketeering, making Weston eligible for the death penalty. 2. Hate crime status. Crucially, the prosecution also utilised the federal hate crime status, making this one of the first high-profile cases where the statute was used to protect the disabled. This was a landmark legal manoeuvre, treating the victim's disabilities not just as a vulnerability, but as the direct target of the conspirators' malice. The list of the charges were comprehensive, including racketeering, conspiracy, kidnapping resulting in death, forced human labour, involuntary servitude, sex trafficking, hate crimes, and various types of fraud. Weston's co-conspirators also faced severe consequences. Her daughter, Jean McIntosh, pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison. Eddie Wright, another conspirator, received 27 years. In 2015, Linda Weston pleaded guilty to all 196 counts in a deal that removed the possibility of the death penalty. On the 5th of November 2015, she stood before US District Judge Cynthia Ruth for sentencing. The final sentence was a term of life in prison plus 80 years. During the hearing, the judge delivered a powerful statement, telling Weston that her own future in a federal prison with 3 meals a day and access to medical care would be a paradise compared to the conditions she imposed on her victims. Weston was ordered to pay over $273,000 in restitution. The legacy of Linda Weston is not just about the conviction of a monster, but the deep systematic flaws her actions exposed. The representative pay programme. The case became a national flashpoint, revealing how easily the Social Security Administration's payment programme could be hijacked by predators. The subsequent public scrutiny and legislative pressure demanded greater oversight, stricter vetting, and more rigorous periodic checks on those entrusted with the financial well-being of the disabled. Child Protective Services. The failure of Philadelphia's Department of Human Rights to flag Weston's prior murder conviction when granting her custody of her niece Beatrice prompted immediate and painful review of placement and background check. The victims, survivors of unmanageable torture, demonstrated an incredible resilience. Their testimony ensured that Linda Weston would spend the rest of her life behind bars. The case remains a chilling testament to the darkest extremes of greed and inhumanity, and a continuing call for vigilance in protecting the most vulnerable among us. Thank you for listening today, and remember, stay behind the yellow tape. The crimes that brought Linda Weston to national attention in 2011 were not committed in a vacuum. They were in fact a sickening reoccurrence of a pattern established decades earlier. In 1983, Weston was convicted for the starvation death of a man she had locked in a closet, a crime for which she served a relatively short prison sentence. This background should have been a screaming red flag, but tragically, it was overlooked.